Ready to go on another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. I'm Soren Petro, Sports Radio 810 WHB. We are talking about some of the news. Sam McDowell has a piece in the Kansas City Star about the latest on Arrowhead Stadium. We're going to dive deep into Arrowhead Stadium. How important is it, for the Kansas City Chiefs moving forward? The fans, what it means to them. Where does Arrowhead rank in terms of toughest places to play in the league? What would a move to Kansas mean to the Chiefs' home field advantage? Would it change that? Would the fans in Missouri really turn their backs on the team if they were to move across the state line? And out of all the moments that have happened, what is the richest moment in the history of Arrowhead Stadium? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here and talking about the stadium. Let's start with you, Sam. I know you've got a piece in the went up on the website, I think, yesterday. I think went to print today for the first time, if I'm not mistaken. Just the very latest. I know you've been covering the story along with some of your colleagues at the Star. Where are we on the latest with the Chiefs when it comes to their future stadium?
Yeah, so for the longest time, I mean, these teams have been operating under, the quasi deadline of June 30th to make this decision because that's when the Kansas Star bonds were set to sunset. And it was a little bit of an artificial deadline because an 8-person committee could retroactively, extend that deadline up to another year. I think what they'll end up doing is probably extending it until December-ish. The committee is going to meet on July 7th with the intentions to discuss extending that deadline of the Star Bonds and Stadium Incentive Package in Kansas. But that extension comes on the heels of the Chiefs requesting one. And that's why this becomes more than meets the eye here, because this is different than a year ago when Kansas legislation allowed Star Bonds to fund up to 70% of a stadium project for the Chiefs or the Royals. This here, you have Chiefs team president Mark Donovan making the case to extend it because, hey, we're close to the core components on a deal in Kansas, and it's an 8-member body, the LCC, saying, okay, we believe you that you are making progress in Kansas. And that gives us a little bit of a sense of the behind the scenes nature of these conversations that, look, you mentioned the Star, like we've covered the hell out of this story and, we've gotten into some of that, but we haven't had the team president on the record saying we're close to, closing some core components of a potential deal in Kansas. And by the way, my sources all say that they're still talking to Missouri as recently as this week. Like those conversations are all going. Mark Donovan called Governor Mike Kehoe in Missouri and gave him a heads up that this was coming. So like they're keeping that avenue open, but the avenue in Kansas, I guess, has never looked more open than I think it does right now.
Yeah, I'd add in a couple of things. One of the things I think is of note, and get your thoughts on it, Sam, we haven't heard anything for 6 weeks part of the letter that was written from Mark Donovan. I agree with you. I don't think they're going to. I talked with some folks as well recently, and I don't think they're in the mindset to extend this if they think they're just being used as a ploy against Missouri, right? So I do think there's going to be some, impetus on the Chiefs to prove that, yeah, we're going in this, and this is a direction where we think we're going to land. And so I think that'll be interesting to see. If they do extend it, they are, like you said, saying, okay, we think we're moving towards this and we're going to get it done. But what do you make of the fact that in Mark Donovan's letter, there was a letter made public, you guys had it on as part of the story down at the bottom of your story, where he says, basically we haven't had a response for 6 weeks. What did you take from that?
Yeah, so the Kansas Star bonds basically empowered the Lieutenant Governor and Commerce Secretary David Tolan to negotiate with the Chiefs and Royals. And that letter is Mark Donovan informing the committee that, hey, the reason this has been of a slower pace for the last month and a half isn't because of us. We're waiting on the latest reply from that office. And the LCC, the committee that gets to determine whether or not this is extended, and they also, by the way, will eventually be the ones that determine if the Royals or Chiefs bring a project to them, they'll have to approve it. And so that body obviously has some power. And Ty Masterson, the chair of that council, said, look, if you guys don't start negotiating, meaning the state reps, then we're gonna get involved here. And so I think you could sense the frustration for Mark Donovan that in that letter, even though it is written word and not spoken word, that they haven't received a response in 6 weeks. I will just real quickly, I don't think this is announcing their intention to go to Kansas. I think this is announcing that they haven't crossed this off the list and they are still taking it very seriously.
Yeah. What do you think? Does an extension mean that Kansas thinks they're going to get it, or that Kansas just thinks they're in the game?
I think with the Chiefs, I think it means they think they're in the game. I mean, look, that's the question that I think all entities here, Missouri, Kansas, Jackson County, Clay County, when it comes to the Royals, like everyone I think is been cautious to say, hey, we don't want to be used as leverage here. And that's what Mark Donovan is doing in that letter, is saying, you guys aren't just leverage. We're taking this option seriously. And that's why I said, it's that council saying, okay, we believe you. We think you are taking this seriously and that we are in the game here. But the Chiefs are only half this conversation. This, even though Mark Donovan wrote that letter, requested the extension, the Royals get the extension too. And all of my sources tell me that they're having very serious conversations in Kansas as well. So I think Kansas would have been inclined to extend this, even if it wasn't just the Chiefs. But it's very clear based on that letter that the Chiefs are the ones who advocated and probably also the ones who accomplished the extension of that deadline.
Yeah. I want to point this out because Steven says, because I am, I think this is a good point. He said, the nation has Chiefs fatigue. The city has stadium fatigue.
This reporter has stadium fatigue.
This talk show host has stadium fatigue. I will tell you. And, somebody else said, here, it was Terry who said, the ever fluid situation. That's incredibly accurate. There are just there's so much money and so many people and municipalities involved in this that it is like there are some days, you tell me, Sam, you cover this and you're like, okay, it feels like this is where it's going to be. And then 2 months later, you're like, no, it feels like it's this, or it feels like this is the holdup over here. And now it's this over there. There's just so many moving parts, and putting a multi-billion-dollar real estate deal together, wherever it goes, it just takes, and meanwhile, everybody on the government side is working on other stuff too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredibly complicated deal. Like, I've never thought that, hey, this is like even close to final because of the complications with, I think to your point, Soren, like in June of 24, when the Star bonds initially passed, I think a lot of people thought, well, here we go. And it's like, well, Missouri's going to try something. And it took a full year before we saw the response from Missouri. And so I never was about to say that one of these teams was on the verge of something without knowing what the Missouri's response is going to be. Having said that, yes, I've definitely heard preferences among both of these teams. And I think that, this is a Chiefs podcast. I think the Chiefs are seriously considering both options. And I think it's taken some convincing to have people believe that they actually would leave Arrowhead Stadium, that Clark Hunt would be willing to leave Arrowhead Stadium. And again, that is without a doubt the purpose of Mark Donovan's letter saying, we will leave. Like, we will go to Kansas. And in the end, this is what the big picture of this was my reaction as soon as this vote failed last April, was these teams are not going to lose leverage after losing a vote. They're going to win leverage after losing a vote. And that's what we've seen. We have two states, that, whatever border truce they have is gone on this. Like, you've got two states competing and putting their best foot forward. Like, these are two pretty compelling offers, but also two pretty complicated deals to get done.
But I had one question about that 6-week lack of response. How much do you think that was Kansas looking to see what's Missouri going to do? I mean, I think they have a right to see how this is going to play out on the other side of it, right? And I think that window included Missouri putting their offer forward, right?
It did, but look, I think there has been skepticism on the Kansas side for whether or not the Chiefs would actually go over there. I think there's probably been less skepticism about whether the Royals would go over there. And like I said, I mean, that office has been empowered to negotiate with the Chiefs and the Royals. And I think if you believe that one is perhaps more likely than the other, that might garner some of your attention comparatively. So I don't think that it suggests that they're not interested in the Chiefs, but I could also understand the Chiefs saying, what the hell? Like, we are this dynasty NFL team. Why is it taking 6 weeks to get a potential reply? And by the way, we did reach out to David Tolan's office, and so I'd like to give him a chance to defend that accusation. He didn't reply directly to whether or not that was accurate, but said Kansas Commerce continues to conduct a careful analysis of cost and benefits as part of the crafting agreements to keep the Chiefs and Royals in the region while maximizing growth opportunities for Kansas, is what he said.
Well, and I think I've talked to a number of folks. I talked with some people last night knowing we were going to have this conversation here today. And, I talk about all the different moving parts. There are a lot of moving. Kansas, we think of Kansas as one thing, and we think of Missouri as one thing. I think maybe more in Missouri, there's an understanding of all the different, that there's a Jackson County, a Kansas City, Missouri, the state of Missouri. But even within that, there are, individuals that make up what they decide to do. And on the Kansas side, I think there is definitely there's no doubt there is interest and a want to bring the teams there. Then you get to the devil's in the details. Like, it's not just, okay, we want to go, and then you build whatever. There are, as we've heard on the Missouri side, people, want, what is the community benefits agreement? And there's all these different things that go into it. I don't think there's as much of that on the Kansas side, but there is everybody still. I think there are some people pushing harder to get this done, and some people who are like, yeah, we'll get it done when it happens. And I think that's just the very nature of what complicates it. Because I will say that there are people on the Kansas side that are frustrated that there hasn't been a response in 6 weeks as well. I can confirm that there are folks in the process that are like, let's go. What are we waiting on here? We have this opportunity to go get it. Do we want the team or do we not? Do we want both the teams or do we not? And I think to Sam's point, and again, the Chiefs, and we're going to talk about Arrowhead and its place and what it means and the home field advantage for the Chiefs and those things here in a second. But I do think this would be easier if there were just one team in play, right? And it feels to me like Kansas would love to get a team. The idea of two teams is a lot. Like, they've got the mechanism theoretically in place. Sam has voiced skepticism about, whether or not they could sell the bonds that it would take for the star bonds. But I do think the fact that, it sounds great. Okay, these two teams are separated, but they're still negotiating with the same municipalities. So now instead of one negotiation with two people, there's two negotiations with two people. I don't know that it got any simpler to get the deal done. And I do think that the Royals are part of what has delayed a response to the Chiefs. Everything that's going on with the Royals, like, you got the same people that have to talk to the Royals that need to talk to the Chiefs. So you can't be on the phone with both of them, just to oversimplify the point of what's going on here and why it does kind of drag on,
Well, I'll add to that too. What do they want? It's still not clear what either team wants, which might help the process be a lot faster.
I think, we don't have renderings, right, for everything, but I think it's pretty clear. The Chiefs are either going to renovate at Arrowhead Stadium, and then the question becomes, do they keep the practice facility there, or do they go to another location in Missouri? If the stadium and practice facility are going to be in the same state, Like Sam, you'd agree with that. That's what I've been told by.
It's required by the law. They have to be
yeah.
in the same state.
So they have to be in the same
Both
state.
those, the Kansas bill, the Star Bonds bill, and then the Missouri bill separately have the same language that requires the practice facility to stay in the state if the stadium is in the state.
And so, and I think, I feel confident of the locations. The Chiefs Stadium would be out by the Legends, and the practice facility would be just south of the soccer facility. Kids, the youth soccer, just south of Family Leisure. I plugged to one of my sponsors on A10, just south of their location at K10 and Ridgeview. That's the area where the land is. That's where the practice facility would go on the Kansas side. So I think the Chiefs do have locations. It would be clearly a new stadium if they moved to Kansas. The Royals is going to be a new stadium. But I don't know that we, have a spot. Like I think we know where the Chiefs will be mostly, right? Like I can't 100% guarantee. I've been told that let's say the Royals move to Kansas, that the location in Clay County could end up being the practice facility for the Chiefs, with the stadium staying at Arrowhead if they stay on the Missouri side. Have you heard similar, Sam? Is that a fair representation of what you think? We have places for the Chiefs. We don't necessarily have places. We've heard Washington Park.
No, we've got places for the Royals too. I mean, they're discussing Washington Square Park with the city. And by the way, the Royals, as recently as this week, had conversations with representatives from Kansas City, Missouri. I was told. So those conversations haven't died yet either. But all their focus has been on Washington Square Park on the Missouri side, a downtown area that's just east of Union Station, just south of Crown Center there. And their concentration in Kansas has been, the 119th and Null Aspira campus over there, formerly the Sprint campus. So that's what the Royals, I think, are looking at. I don't look, they haven't announced 2 finalists, but from my understanding,
and the Chiefs haven't either, to be clear.
Yeah, the Chiefs say they're looking at multiple. I'm told that they're looking at multiple sites on there. I think that, yes, a Legends area probably makes the most sense if you're talking about a Chiefs move to Kansas. But sorry, thanks for correcting me. It's just north of Crown Center, the Washington Square Park. But yeah, I mean, they the order of this is going to be interesting to me, because the Royals announced something either way. I mean, does the loser of these sweepstakes, so to speak, become more motivated? Particularly if we hear a Royals announcement to Kansas, for example. Does and it's not Missouri in that sense, does Jackson County, whether it's Frank White's office or whether it's the legislature, which is the route they took last time, because Frank White did not feel that the deal was up to par for Jackson County, that Jackson County was getting enough benefit out of the current sales tax, which the teams were trying to extend. And that's why Missouri passing its incentive package earlier this month did not lock up this deal, because that incentive package requires, not asked for, but requires local funding as well. And so either of these teams would have to also secure local funding if they want to stay in Missouri. The Chiefs have been clear. That would come from Jackson County taxpayers. It'd be a renovated Arrowhead Stadium. It's the only option they're considering in Missouri, I'm told, is just renovating Arrowhead Stadium. And they would have to be, they would require a tax. They would go back to the county with a tax. Like I said, whether that's Frank White's office to get it on the ballot, whether that's the county legislature, which is not a lock. You got to get 6 of the 9 in order to override a potential veto from Frank White's office. You've got to get 6 of those 9 legislators to agree to it. And then you've got to send it back to the voters without the Royals. It's your own. But then what kind of tax are we talking? It's not split anymore. What kind of tax are we talking? So I know that I've gone on a little bit here, but there's a point to it. This is still complicated on that side of the state, even after you get the incentives package. And I don't mean complicated as in these teams aren't getting anything. What the state is offering is a lot for both sides of the state line of offering these teams a lot. But that is a requirement. So that's why it wasn't just, okay, now they're both staying in Missouri after that happened.
All right. How important is that home field advantage moving forward for the Kansas City Chiefs? What has it meant? We will talk about it next after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's talk a little bit about the importance of Arrowhead, Jeff. How important is it? I will give you, by the way, just some stats if you'd like. Arrowhead before Andy Reid, a .570 winning percentage the Chiefs had there at Arrowhead since its construction. Under Andy Reid, they're best in the league, 74 wins. That's more than anybody, a .755 win percentage. With just the Patrick Mahomes era, that increases to a .776 win percentage. They're 45-13 at Arrowhead Stadium. So how important has Arrowhead been to the Kansas City Chiefs? How important will it be moving forward?
I don't put a ton of importance on stadiums. I think the players and the coaches win the games. And so I've been in some stadiums that aren't that loud. I went to college at a school that has a huge stadium, Michigan, that's not super loud, and they've won a lot of games there. But I do think it's important from the standpoint of just culture and history. It means a lot to people. People's kids have gone there. They've had seats there forever. I totally respect all those memories. But yeah, moving forward, I mean, the Chiefs would still be a great team no matter where they played. And that the loudness of the stadium doesn't mean as much as the quality of the team you're putting in there. And I would remind people that there's a lot of places in the league where you have a team playing one place and the stadium somewhere else, a long way away from that. You know, it's New York, teams play in New Jersey. Obviously, Dallas is in Arlington. San Francisco's in Santa Clara. You know, I mean, there's the Patriots are in Foxborough. So there's a lot of places. Obviously, some of those places aren't crossing state lines. But this is a team that it was conceived as being a regional team, not just a team for Kansas City, but for Iowa and Nebraska and Oklahoma. And so the idea of that changing because the stadium moves someplace else, I don't think that's a huge factor in the team's overall success.
What do you think Arrowhead's meant, Sam?
Yeah, if we're talking about success versus emotionally meant to fans, I think it'd be two different answers. Like if we're talking just about the success, you mentioned the win percentage, but let's contrast it with the road record they've had during that time. The Chiefs are 33-9 at home since 2020. They're 33-9 on the road since 2020. Like, good teams actually, I think, get assisted by home field advantage less because they're just good teams. It's the bad teams that get the assist from the home field advantage because they're the ones in more desperate need of it. And I think they feed off the energy more because you mentioned the records before and after Andy Reid, but there was a study a while ago, and this is 2 years old by someone on Brian Nimhauser, who did a study on, your win rate at home compared to the road. And the Chiefs are 79% in the 80s, 72 in the 90s, 60 in the 2000s. Then suddenly Mahomes comes along, it's 4% edge in the 2010s. And I just mentioned the road and home record. It's dead even now. So that once your team becomes to a certain point, they don't care where they play. Like, they're just the better team on the field at that point. But Chiefs aren't going to have Patrick Mahomes forever. So at some point, they won't be this Super Bowl favorite team, in which case, yeah, I think it gives those types of teams a boost.
What does it mean for the community, right? Like the memories, like, Tommy's on here.
Yeah.
Tommy always gets all fired up. He doesn't want a dome.
Oh, he's here.
He wants. Oh, I know he's on there firing away. I like he taking shots at my comments that I'd like to see a dome and see the other events that would come to Kansas City. But he's not alone. There are lots of people that feel that way. I mean, there weren't enough of them in Jackson County to go past the vote last time, but there's a lot of sentiment. What does it mean for the to have that building, be a classic, for lack of a better term, Jeff?
Well, it means a lot. I mean, again, I don't want to belittle that part of it. I mean, there's been some great memories in that stadium. I've been around for a lot of those, the more recent ones. And we're going to get into some of those moments later on in the show. But again, I go back to the point of, and Sam just made it, like, if you're a good team, you're going to win wherever you play. And I think what happens is a lot of fan bases don't get a chance to see other stadiums around the league and what those stadiums look like and how important that is to the community as well, in order to be able to create more avenues for revenue. Some people may not like the idea of a dome, but yeah, a dome means you can start talking about a Super Bowl. You can start talking about a Final Four. You can start talking about these other things that drive the economy. The biggest myth going is that sports teams alone drive economic advancement. They don't. It's what you bring with them. It's the idea of having a bigger retail space that goes along with the stadium. It's having those events I just spoke about. Those are the things that really drive the community and help people grow. And I think one of the biggest issues with this particular stadium discussion is that the unsaid part of this is that the money is in Kansas and the stadium is in the poor part of the region. Right. I mean, the money, there's not as many people in Jackson County who are bringing the kind of dollars that Kansas can bring to it. So the people over here, where I live in Kansas, they enjoy the benefits of that. And to tax the community that can't utilize it in the same way, that's not fair.
Yeah. I like this. I think this is a fair point. It's not a bad stadium, but people treat it like it's Wrigley Field or something. It's just a very basic stadium.
Yeah.
Listen, there's been very little success in Wrigley Field. Let's be honest. Like, the Cubs have not been a banner franchise, yet Wrigley Field is an iconic place. Like, and I think that's the question is, for me, the Chiefs want to talk like Arrowhead is a destination attraction. Wrigley Field, Fenway Park, there are more games. Baseball's different. There's more opportunity to get to and see that event. So I think more people come. There are only a handful of games that are played at Arrowhead Stadium, and largely the local population or regional population, as Jeff put it, gobble up all the tickets. I hear about stadium tours for baseball. I don't hear that as much, right? Like that, the Chiefs have 25,000 people a year that are from, at least 10-hour drive away. Like I've never seen any study that says that, but they want to talk, Sam, like it is, a place like I think the only stadium that fits that bill is Lambeau Field. And it is a renovated Arrowhead Stadium, a destination place that people will come just to see, in your mind.
I think it's the environment that people come to see. Like, I don't think that, to your point, people are going to see Arrowhead Stadium absent the Chiefs playing inside of it. And I'm not saying they don't go to other events there. They do. But I'm saying, like, the coolness of Arrowhead Stadium or the people inside of it that make up that atmosphere. Because I've been to every single stadium in the NFL that's currently around other than Seattle's, which we'll get to go to for preseason this year. And, as far as, coolness of the stadium from the inside, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be ranked in your top 5. I will say, though, it's huge. It's 75,000 plus there. And a lot of these new stadiums are not 75,000 plus seat stadiums anymore. That we've seen that with, Allegiant Stadium was one of the small stadiums to ever host a Super Bowl. It's a new stadium. Like, that's typically what you see with some of the new stadiums. And I think that if the Chiefs did move to Kansas, I don't think you'd expect to see a 76,000 seat stadium there anymore. And to me, that's certainly part of the environment of Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think in a renovation of Arrowhead, you'll see a drop in capacity with that as well. They're not going to change the bowl, the integrity of the bowl. or anything, but they will go for bigger seats and more luxury areas and things like that. And the capacity will continue to come down. And I think this one from Thaddeus said the only thing is about what he's getting at is the tailgating. He said that's it, nothing more, right? And I think that's, that concern Kansas is aware of and has made clear that they will build the massive parking lot for tailgating to happen on the Kansas side. That's one thing that everybody in Kansas has said is like the plan in Kansas will have space for tailgate. So if the idea is, well, I don't want to lose, I don't want to, end up where I can't tailgate, that will not be the case around the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't say that about the Royals, right? And there's tailgating that goes on at the Royals, not to the extent, right? It's not clearly a thing with Arrowhead, but it'll be there in Kansas as well. So, I think a lot of people are worried about that. Kansas has made it very clear that that's not going to change. Where does it rank as far as toughest places to play, Jeff? Like, is it tough for other teams, to come in? Granted, it needs a winning team to make it raucous and loud. But when it is it a tougher place to play?
Oh, I think I think Buffalo is the toughest place to play just because of the wind in there and the weather, and it's an older stadium. And so it's loud. But yeah, I think Arrowhead's definitely number 2. I mean, just because of the loudness and the oldness, the fans. And I think Seattle's in there too, a newer stadium that to me, I've never been any place louder than when Marshawn Lynch had his touchdown run, against the Saints back when they were starting their run to a championship. And the place really was shaking. But again, that's like 3 or 4 places that I can think of on the top of my head. And every place else pretty much, if you went to see the Colts back when Peyton Manning was playing there, Indy had a rocking place. If you went to Minnesota, right now, Bank of America Stadium, a newer stadium, the Vikings place gets super loud. I think that it's definitely top 3 because of the things I've seen happen here. And again, they got the record for a reason, right? So, but I think Buffalo, if you guys have been to Buffalo for games, it's a very weird place to play, and it sucks going in there.
Yeah,
for everybody except the home team.
You're right. I totally agree with you on Buffalo. Like, if you cut the Chiefs out of it for a second, and all the places I've been, Buffalo was the one. Now I've only been to Buffalo when the Bills have been good, but Buffalo is the one that ranks by far the toughest environment I've seen the Chiefs have to play in. It's also the spot where I've seen the fewest Chiefs fans there. The Chiefs travel really well.
Is that because the Bills have all the tickets, or nobody wants to go to Buffalo?
But that's part of the point.
Oh.
That makes it a tougher environment. It sits in a neighborhood, and it's tough to get to, and it's cold there, and it's windy there, and the seats suck in Buffalo. And look, they're building a new stadium. That's all
going to change. They're building a new stadium. It's going to be
right next door,
across the street. So
it's right next door.
The elements will be the same. The wind, I don't know. We'll see. Bigger stadiums tend to cut down on the wind, but I'm not sure what the design is on that. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be more open. I haven't seen what the design is, but they will lose that old. Both of you mentioned the old and the seats and that will change. Arrowhead, if the Chiefs stay at Arrowhead, will be renovated, but theoretically would still be the old environment.
But they don't even have seat backs on some of the seats in Buffalo. Like, they're still in bleachers in some of the seats.
Saying the fans are pissed. They're uncomfortable.
No, I'm saying that I don't blame Chiefs fans for not picking that trip out of the schedule and saying that's the trip. Although I will encourage people to go because Niagara Falls is unbelievable. But I think that's the toughest environment I've seen the Chiefs have to play in is in Buffalo. I actually thought, I'm surprised Jeff didn't mention this. I saw him play in Detroit in like 21 maybe. Detroit is loud. Now it's indoors, but that place is loud. But Arrowhead, I still think, I think the fact that it's 76,000 people, I think the tailgating gives it an atmosphere and gives you an energy before you even set foot inside the stadium. And I haven't seen a place that has that sort of tailgating environment that the Chiefs have, because it's all confined into one big parking lot and it's one big party together, not all these, separate places and at this house and this street and this place. Like, you feel the energy before you even walk into Arrowhead Stadium in a way that I do think is distinct across the league. So absolutely, wherever you rank Arrowhead Stadium, it's going to be in your top 5.
Yeah, that is a great point. You're kind of referencing Lambeau, what the vibe is like at Lambeau, because it's like a bunch of house parties going on all around the stadium.
And the Bills too,
Yeah, it is a different feel. All right, we'll talk about how things would change if they did move right after you hear from our friends at Whataburger. Your favorites are back, Kansas City, now for a limited time at all your KC Whataburger locations. Get the Pico de Gallo burger, 2 large beef patties, 2 slices of pepper jack cheese, Pico de Gallo, and creamy cilantro lime. How about the sweet and spicy bacon burger, 2 large beef patties, American and Monterey Jack cheese, bacon, grilled onions, and topped with sweet and spicy pepper sauce. Or grab the patty melt. Even the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. They're all perfect with the Whataburger banana pudding shake. Remember, Whataburger's open 24 hours a day. Breakfast served 11 p to 11 a. And don't forget, you can get all your Whataburger favorites and more by downloading the Whataburger app with the QR code. Whataburger, proud sponsor of the Red, Gold, and Bold. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, how would it change if they went to Kansas? I mean, I'm a big believer in what Jeff said about the team on the field and the fans in the stands are what deliver the goods. I mean, I think that's what makes Arrowhead special. Listen, my family had season tickets when I was, in the late 70s. They sucked all the way through until about I took them over at some point and just walked away about 5 or 6 years ago from my season tickets. So I spent a lot of time in Arrowhead Stadium. A lot of empty days, right? When the team sucks, it's empty. But when it's rocking, it's as good as it gets. If you go to Kansas, presumably, and Jeff, you mentioned getting closer to the people with the money. I think they're going to want more money, right? There's going to be more luxury seats. They're going to that's the whole purpose of building the new buildings is to get more money out of it. So there will be PSLs. In fact, I think there may be PSLs. Have we heard of that? Sam, no PSLs if they renovate, but I think that's the case. There
were no plans last time with the renovations, but right. I totally agree with you. I mean, we haven't seen a new NFL stadium in a bit that did not have PSLs included, and including that new Buffalo stadium that's opening. I think 26, I believe.
Yeah, they are, and the Titans are, and I guarantee you, with a new stadium, there will be PSLs that come with it. Now, it's been stressed to me, listen, a PSL, you own it. It's a commodity that you can sell. So you do buy it, and so you then can sell that. Does it go up?
It's more money coming out of your pocket.
It's more money coming out of your pocket. And it's what it basically is to suck more money now. Because money in hand now is more important. That's why every business, you buy a bigger jar of something, they discount the price. More money now is always important. And that's what the PSL is to get more money right now and put it in the coffers of the team. And there would presumably be more luxury seats. Do we lose an element that makes Arrowhead great if now all of a sudden everything's more expensive and a higher percentage of the seats are more expensive, Jeff? Would that change the environment?
Well, it certainly is going to change the environment. I mean, look, I started my career covering the Oakland Raiders in the Oakland Coliseum, which I think is probably the toughest place I've ever seen anybody play in. And Allegiant Stadium is a long way from that. Obviously, it's a different state, but it's a much nicer place. You go to the 49ers Stadium in Santa Clara, it's a long way from Candlestick Park. Ford Field is a long way from the Pontiac Silverdome. All these stadiums, when you upgrade, when you renovate, you are pandering more to the people who have the money because they're the ones who are going to be willing to fork it over. And yeah, you lose some of that common man appeal that Arrowhead has. I don't know how many, I don't know the demographics of everybody going in there, but it feels more like average people are going in there and paying money. I know it's not the case, on the club level especially, but that's how it feels. When you go to a nicer stadium with with more bells and whistles on it, it's going to feel more like you're going to a country club. And that's the reality of it. And that will be a little bit of a change for a lot of people involved. But again, I like sitting in nice stadiums. I like air conditioning. I like sushi. I like all these things you see in some of these other places that are available to you that, I don't have to run through 1,000 people to get to a concession stand line to get food. So It will be a change for sure.
Yeah, it might be that we're old, like I think it's just changed. Like for long period of my life, it was just let's be at Arrowhead every Sunday. There's no place I'd rather be, and now I'd love to be there if the seats are perfect, right? Like I think your priorities that may be just we're old. What do you think they gain or lose if they're in a shiny new stadium in Kansas since it's not on the board for Missouri?
Well, I agree with Jeff. I mean, there's no way the environment inside the place doesn't change. If I think even if you moved across the street to a new building, I can't imagine that the environment wouldn't change. I mean, the Chiefs have promised that, they did a survey and 27,000 fans, by the way, replied to their survey. And the number one and two things people wanted were tailgating and the place to be loud. And their thoughts were, well, we're going to take care of that aspect. So I fully trust that all that effort will be made because I think that's what the Chiefs prioritize as well. But the other thing I think that they lose is the cold weather is an advantage for teams that play in cold weather. Like it's statistically proven the teams that play in cold weather and host teams that are not accustomed to playing in cold weather have an advantage in those games. And we've seen it in the playoffs. Like the Chiefs have an advantage remember the Dolphins game 2 years ago? And yes, that was the coldest game in history, but the Dolphins were lost in that game, had no interest in even being on the field. And the Chiefs were comfortable playing on it because they practiced in it. Like that's an element that would be lost with a domed Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas. And I do think it's a actual competitive advantage for a team that practices outside most days.
I think it was an advantage against the Dolphins. I mean, I will grant you that. I mean, I think the Chiefs were the better team that day, but there's also no shot that the Dolphins were walking into that cold. But it starts with the quality of team, though. I will come back to that because I also watched the Dolphins were the team that came in for the final game of the Carl Peterson era, and that was one of the coldest days in the history of the Chiefs as well, and the Dolphins won, right? So it's not a get out of jail free card, but I do agree with you. It does matter if
all three of these teams have been good, so I don't want to say the statistic as it's the defining evidence of my point because these are three good teams, but the three best teams over the last 7 years at home are the Bills, Chiefs, and Packers, and I do think that the elements play into that when those teams host teams that come from warm weather cities. And we already mentioned the reasons why Buffalo's a tough place to play. We've mentioned why Arrowhead's a tough place to play. And Soren, you mentioned Lambeau. Like, I don't think that's coincidental. I don't think it's just because those teams are good. Those teams being good plays a major factor. I just don't think it's the only factor.
Will the fans of Missouri turn their backs on the Chiefs? I mean, like there are people, there are plenty of folks. I get them. I take the phone calls that people are like, oh no, they moved to Kansas, I'm never going. Would they actually turn their backs on a Super Bowl caliber team, Jeff?
They might not go, but I doubt that they would stop rooting for them. I mean, there's a great sense of pride that comes from the Chiefs doing what they've done over the last 7 years, right? I mean, so you get to puff your chest out and say, this is my team. And I get that you might be hurt. You might have, might be in your feelings about them moving, but the reality is they're still going to be your team. And you're still going to want to be a part of that environment. If the Bills are playing here in the AFC Championship game, or the Ravens are coming in for an AFC divisional game, if you have a chance to go, those people in Missouri would go. And like I said before, we have to start looking at this like it's not Kansas versus Missouri. That what's best for the team to be at its best moving forward. And it's a team that I think everybody within this region should be proud of. And so I don't see why just because it goes 20 miles the other way, that means that you can't care about it. I think the people who come in here to go to games, they're still going to stay downtown, on Friday and Saturday night and go to the game on Sunday. There's still going to be people who benefit from that. I just don't. I get it, but I just don't believe it would happen.
I'll push back a little bit on they're going to stay downtown, because part of the plan, I think, for the Chiefs is to try to develop the area around wherever they put the stadiums. And so I think there'd be some folks that would have been staying in, Kansas City, Missouri somewhere that'll now be staying in Kansas. So I think there is an element lost to that. I'm with you. I do think you said something very important. And I think both these teams, and I know that Kansas has said this a lot, and the Missouri people are losing something, so I don't expect them to say this, but I think they would probably say it in the end. The Kansas people have said, if we don't get it, great, as long as it stays in Missouri, right? They've made that.
That's BS. Then why don't they? Then why don't they drop their offer today?
Because Missouri want the team. They
Missouri passed the stadium incentives package. Like
they want the team. I didn't say they don't want the team. They said, but if we don't get it, it's fine as long as they stay in the region. And I that's what I think. I don't really care which side of the state line it is.
That has absolutely been said. I don't buy it because Missouri, they all said that when a lot of them said that whenever Kansas passed its Star Bonds packages, we're just making sure this team stays in the region.
Yeah. Why don't you buy it?
Because Missouri passed an incredibly similar incentives package a
year later after
they didn't drop it.
And
what did they just do yesterday? They agreed to meet to potentially extend their deadline. They didn't take their offer off the table and say, okay, now they've got an offer. Now we know they're going to stay in the region. They're still competing to get the Chiefs.
I think you're just breezing right by the first part. They want the teams.
That's my point.
Yes.
They don't just want them to stay in the region.
Yeah,
they want them to go to
we would
Kansas
not be. Would you agree with this? We would not be here where we are today, coming down the stretch run, if Kansas did not put that offer on the table. Missouri was showing no signs of getting anything done. We might get here a year from now or 2 years from now. We might get here after listening to the Royals dance with Nashville and watch John Sherman take a tour around a potential site for a baseball stadium in Nashville. We might get here after Clark Hunt has people, or Mark Donovan goes out to take the arrows for Clark Hunt after they mention San Antonio or different places. We might get to where we are, but we would not be where we are today if there was not the mechanism in place for Kansas. 100%. I will tell you we would not be where we are today.
Not 100%.
100%.
I certainly think that Missouri senators and the House and the Senate were motivated by believing that the Kansas offer was real. But I don't think we can definitively say that absolutely nothing would have happened.
I will say I covered the red.
And by the way, these people want it in Kansas. They don't just want it in the region. I know what they said, that it's
no one's arguing that point. No one's arguing that point.
Well, they are.
No, they've said that they want to make sure that the teams stay in the region. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think what Soren is saying, that it'd be different if Kansas had come in before there was ever a vote in Missouri and said, hey, we want these guys over in Kansas. Once you come over here, we'll do something great for you. I think what he's saying is this whole thing was triggered by this vote not working out. And then all of a sudden, hey, well, what are we going to do here? And Kansas said, well, we can do something here.
Yeah, they had to be careful about that stuff. I mean, there's some potential league language that requires you to make a full concerted effort to stay. And this is not a different market. So like, I don't know that they would have had to go through that step, but like, you better make sure.
The vote did make it much easier for them to be public. There's no doubt. Like to go out there and say, we're going to do it. Like tampering was something that was there, but it's also, I mean, it's like turning around and saying, because the first vote didn't pass, that Missouri doesn't want them. The voters don't want them. They don't want the Royals. They don't want the Chiefs. And that's not the case. That's an unfair. Yeah, they didn't want that plan. They didn't want that taxing plan. Just as I listen, I'm going to tell you, when it comes to the Royals, there are lots of people in Kansas. They definitely want the Royals. They don't want them where the Royals are talking about going. Right now, it doesn't mean that they want the Royals in Nashville. There are lots of people that don't want them in Overland Park, right? So I think it's unfair to characterize that Kansas doesn't want them in the region. They only want they want them in the region first.
They're they're motivated to keep them in Kansas. This was characterized initially as, we just want to keep them in the region. It's more than that. They want them in Kansas.
And everything that is said by the teams in Missouri is about how much money they generate for the state of Missouri, and never about how much money they suck out. That's the game. I mean, I assume we're all adults at the table and understand how politics is played and how things get done. They didn't build the Panasonic multi-billion-dollar factory or whatever the hell it is, battery plant in Kansas, with $0 from the state of Kansas. There was millions and millions of dollars that went into that, but there's no light shined on it because it doesn't get clicks like Royals and Chiefs do. But every major project for any company comes with all kinds of teats being milked from county and city and state governments. We just don't spend time talking about it in sports talk radio, my world, and really, I don't know where they do, right? Like, so this is once you're talking about having professional sports in a small market, this is the way it works. So yeah, they want it because they believe that it's a revenue generator for the state. And, I think that at least takes off the table the debate that went on, because I listened to it when there was no Kansas in 2006 when we went through the renovations. A big part of the debate was, do we even want these teams? All they do is, in fact, the guy you work with, Mike Hendricks, right? I got his name right. Mike Hendricks, who you work with on this story, right? For the Star.
The story today was my column, but yeah, I mean, other reporters had
okay. Well, the one, whenever it was, but Mike Hendricks went on and on in 2006 about, and I had him on my radio show about how it's a drain on the economy, that, it costs the economy money. We're not having that conversation this year. You want to know why? Because there's another state right next door going, we'll take them.
What do you mean we're not having? The Stars produced a lot of copy about that. These are not economic drivers. Jeff mentioned it earlier, but
I know
you'll find more people that agree on that than climate change. I mean, like these are statistically not economic drivers, which is why, regardless of where these teams go, I think they should be selling it differently.
Do you hear anyone in the municipality saying that?
Oh yeah.
Of the people, then why are they putting together an incentive package to keep it?
They lost. Those people lost. You asked if I heard anyone saying it. Yes. I mean, that's the number one reason why people voted. The people who voted, this didn't pass unanimously in either state. So yeah, you asked if I heard anyone. Yes, that was brought up several times on the Senate floor. Yeah,
and overwhelmingly shot down.
Well, I wouldn't say overwhelmingly, but they did lose.
So when a 2-1 vote is 140 something or 3-1 vote. What is overwhelming in politics? 60-40
not the final vote.
In an election. People talking about an ass kicking. It was overwhelming.
It was not 3-1. That's not right.
It was 140 something to 40 something, wasn't it?
I thought it was 60-40. I thought it was
60-40 is not 3-1. 3-1 is 75-25.
And that's what I thought it was. I thought it was like 100 and.
Well, the Senate only has like 39, I think. There. I mean, the House passed it 90 to 50.
I don't want to get caught in the minutia.
19 to 13 in the Senate, and then 90 to 58.
What, 90 to 58? Okay, so here. So if we want to get down to it, I guess we need
2-1
to move the conversation forward.
No, I'm good with it. I just disputed the fact of 3-1.
It's 61%.
Yeah, so it's not 3-1. That's all I was saying.
Okay, it's 61%. Yeah. It's an overwhelming.
And the Senate was 19 to 13. Yeah.
Okay. So it's pretty clear that all of a sudden a debate that lots of people wrote said you shouldn't even be wanting these teams. That's not the main discussion now. Now people don't want to lose the team to another state. Right. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time covering.
And that's been the brilliance of what that's why I said these teams would gain leverage after this vote. I mean, the Chiefs have been really out front in a lot of these things in front of the Senate. I mean, they were the ones who sent Mark Donovan's the one who sent this letter. It's the brilliance in the strategy is they have turned this conversation into, you don't want to lose this team 20 miles down the road, or you've got a once in a lifetime chance to get us now and bring us 20 miles down the road. That's been what's, like I said, the brilliance of the strategy is, and the Chiefs are in a unique spot. There aren't many NFL cities across the country. The Rams were formerly one, but that sit near a state border to where you can pit two entities this large against one another and not have to move out of the market, regardless of where the choice is. So, yeah, I mean, it's exactly why they've been able to get the leverage in this situation. Is you've got two states that want to have this team.
Yeah,
same with the Royals.
And the number, and I'm trying to find it, but I'm struggling on a Google search here to get it. The numbers that are in my head, I think, are the Kansas vote on what it was. I think it's even more than that. If you have those numbers, Sam, the vote in the Kansas House, I think those are the numbers that I had in my head, but I'm not getting without going through it. I have to read through.
Yeah, but look, I don't think that's I don't remember what that one was a year ago, but it's sort of beside the point, right?
No, not to the point of whether or not it's, people are debating on it being a money loser for the region. It's not. It's an overwhelming vote, in my opinion. The way politics usually works, it's a big vote. What is the biggest, richest moment in the history of Arrowhead Stadium, Jeff?
I'll take the 13-second game, the Bills game. I think obviously it's easy to pick the conference championship moments, and those are meaningful for a lot of reasons because this franchise had waited so long, its fans had waited so long to win a championship or have a chance to play in that game. But I just think that game is in terms of just overall plays in the history of the league, the last minute of that game, the total game, the game in totality was amazing. But the last 13 seconds kind of put it over the top for me. So I would say watching that game, being at that game, I know Sam was at that game, one of the best games I've ever watched. So I'll take that one.
How about you, Sam?
Yeah, that's the best game I've ever seen, regardless of sport. And I've been at World Series games, Super Bowls, whatnot. Like, that is the most stunned I've ever been as a reporter sitting there watching the game. I guess just to add one more that's a little bit different different than what we just said, but the best individual play moment I think I've seen is the Patrick Mahomes run against the Titans in the 2019 AFC Championship game. I guess technically would have been January of 2020. But that was the moment where it was so evident the tide was turning that the Chiefs were probably going to be, for the first time, holding up a Lamar Hunt trophy. Game wasn't over. It was before halftime. But I think that was you could feel it in the stands that everyone thought the Chiefs are going to win this game. For the first time, they're going to be, like I said, holding up the trophy that holds their owner's name. That's the best play I've seen.
And they were down 10-0 in that game, right?
They were.
Yeah. So it turned the tide, right?
Yeah. And I think gave them the lead right before halftime, or a minute and a half before halftime, whatever it might have been, less than a minute. But that's I think the play that really started this all.
Yeah. By the way, I think it's 27-8 was the vote in Kansas, in the Kansas Senate. So.
Look, if we want to talk about that not mattering, it's why it's hung up in Jackson County. It's because
I just want to get the number out there.
Disagree on the economics. It's why it was voted down by 58 to 42%, because people disagreed with the economics. Like, we can't say that's not part of the conversation. It is a significant part of the conversation.
Yeah, just want to get the number out there.
I just don't know what it proves. Like, what does it prove?
It was overwhelming.
What does that prove?
Because you said to me it's not overwhelming.
You were talking about the Missouri vote.
Yes, it is
you
overwhelming.
said it was 3-1, and I said no, it was not 3-1.
Overwhelming number.
Well, now you're changing to a completely different vote.
I know. How does it feel?
I just don't understand. Like, this is total. You're totally wrong about this point. You really think that the economics of this stadium means nothing in this conversation? Because that's what you said.
No,
like, if we want to drone on about this conversation, we can't.
Not what I said. I said it was wrong. It was overwhelming. So
it's flat wrong.
From a vote, I think it's overwhelming.
Look, I tried to hold back. I was going to let it off, but it's dead flat wrong. This is a significant part of this conversation still today.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete has you covered with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Northland Injury Law. If you've been hurt in an accident, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. Serving KC for more than 40 years, voted KC's #1 accident lawyers. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. And, of course, our friends at Whataburger. Open 24 hours, serving breakfast 11 p to 11 a. Right now, for a limited time, your favorites are back at the Pico de Gallo Burger, the sweet and spicy bacon burger, the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich, and the patty melt. My personal favorite, by the way. You can wash it all down with the banana pudding shake. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.